If a weapon could cross an ocean in minutes, what did distance matter? Beneath the dim glow of the headlights, a row of mobile launchers stood motionless steel behemoths with their tubes pointed straight toward the horizon. The Pacific night was quiet, but the air trembled with the weight of whatever lay dormant within. They called it the Dark Eagle, a name derived not from myth, but from the cold precision of physics. On the surface, it looked ordinary, a simple machine, but inside its chassis was the most powerful non-nuclear missile the United States had ever built. No warhead, no radiation, just raw speed down, the kind that warped the very laws of time. Power, it turned out, wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was the silence before impact. This was the long-range hypersonic weapon-ass, a weapon for a new age, where Mach numbers replaced battle cries. It was forged, not for show, but for deterrence, designed to strike faster than reaction, to stay out of reach of any defense. But every weapon tells a story, not just of the metal it is made of, but of the minds that fear and create it. Tonight, we explore that story, the birth of Dark Eagle, the storm that quietly reshaped the balance of power in the Pacific. The night begins with an order. From a dimly lit command truck, a single code is transmitted, an invisible spark that awakens a sleeping beast. On the launch pad, the transporter erector launcher exhales steam, hydraulics hissing as the canister tilts skyward. The Dark Eagle waits inside, a spear of polished alloy weighing more than 7 tons, its circuitry sealed, its purpose absolute. When ignition comes, it does not roar, it erupts. A column of fire tears through the silence, painting the desert sky in violent amber. Dust storms whip across the horizon as the first stage rocket motor kicks in, hurling the missile upward with forces that crush air into plasma. The ground trembles beneath the battery operations center, yet inside, the screens remain calm. Coordinates flash, telemetry streams, and human voices become mechanical, trajectory stable. Altitude 5 kilometers and rising. In this phase, called boost, the missile wrestles with gravity itself. The engines push it past the lower atmosphere. As 10, 20, then 100 kilometers breaking through the Kemmerman line, the symbolic edge of space. Here, the blue fades into black, and the stars no longer shimmer. They stand frozen in a void where sound does not exist. Through thrust vector control, the missile's tail moves in tiny, deliberate corrections. An iron hand steering through vacuum. It is precision, not chaos, that defines this moment. The Dark Eagle adjusts its angle by mere degrees, preparing for separation. Then, silence again. Bane, the first stage detaches, a burnt carcass falling back toward Earth, its job complete. What remains continues to climb, lighter, faster, freer. This is the heartbeat of hypersonic flight, the transition between the known and the unknown. Somewhere below, radar operators track a streak of light, but the signal blurs, the heat overwhelming their sensors. To them, it is not a missile. It is a meteor, a fragment of human will tearing through the heavens. And in that instant, a simple truth emerges. Speed has no morality. It only obeys its maker. The Dark Eagle rises higher still, approaching the thin veil where the sky bends to the edge of the earth. Above 200 kilometers, it will become something else, no longer a projectile, but a glide body, a hunter waiting for gravity to call it home. What begins with thunder will soon fall in silence. At 200 kilometers above the earth, the darkness is complete. The world below curves away, a faint blue halo bleeding into infinity. The Dark Eagle now carries only one heart of fire, the second stage. For a few precious seconds, that heart blazes brighter than the sun. The second stage motor ignites, thrusting the missile beyond the last whisper of air. It does not climb bare air, it surges. Speed builds with ruthless precision. Mach 6, Mach 10, Mach 15, numbers that no longer mean anything, only a constant tearing of space itself. At this altitude, friction becomes a furnace. The air molecules break apart, wrapping the body in a cocoon of plasma that glows like liquid lightning. Inside that fire, the machine remains composed. Sensors hum, algorithms calculate, microthrusters twitch to stabilize the yaw. Then, with perfect timing, the second stage falls away, tumbling into the abyss below. What remains is the soul of the weapon, the common hypersonic glide. Body, a sharpened wedge of ceramic and alloy, designed not to explode but to endure. It carries no warhead, no payload of destruction. Its only weapon is motion. As it turns downward, gravity reclaims it, and the descent begins. A long, silent fall through the layers of the atmosphere. At re-entry, heat blooms again. The glide body is surrounded by fire, the temperature climbing to nearly 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Steel would melt, aluminium would vanish, but the Dark Eagle survives, its skin forged from zirconium diboride and hafnium diboridea, materials born for the impossible. No signal can pierce this inferno. Through the world below, it is invisible, untouchable. Its path bends and twists, guided by tiny fins that flex like the wings of a hunting falcon. Unlike a traditional ballistic missile, it refuses to follow a simple arc. It sways, dives, and climbs again, hiding from prediction. Somewhere far below, radar operators curse the blank screens. Algorithms chase ghosts, trying to lock on to a target that never holds still. To them, it is chaos. To the Dark Eagle, it is art. As it descends, its velocity increases once more, Mach 17, perhaps more beyond the grasp of certainty. The air howls in protest, but the glide body does not hear. It has become pure intention, a silent embodiment of the will that built it. No explosion will mark its arrival, only the impact. The transfer of kinetic energy so vast that it can erase a bunker, a command post, or a fleet in a single breathless instant. From the vacuum of space to the crust of the Earth, 8 minutes may pass. 8 minutes between calm and catastrophe. For every weapon ever made, there has always been a countermeasure. For every sword, a shield. For every arrow, a wall. But the Dark Eagle defies this ancient rhythm. It is not a weapon that flies. It is a weapon that falls, and that makes all the difference. Traditional missiles trace elegant arcs across the sky, predictable, almost poetic in their precision. You can chart their paths, calculate their apogees, and intercept them mid-flight. But the Dark Eagle refuses such predictability. Its descent is alive. It moves not as a machine, but as a thought. Restless, agile, impossible to anticipate. When it re-enters the atmosphere, the world's most advanced radars blink and falter. A sphere of plasma wraps around the glide body, searing the air until electrons scatter and sensors choke. For those watching from command consoles, the missile simply vanishes. One moment, it exists. The next, it is gone, hidden behind its own storm. This phenomenon, known as plasma blackout, renders it untouchable. Radio waves cannot penetrate it. Tracking beams scatter into noise. Every missile defense system relies on information, but when information itself dies, so does defense. Even if detection were possible, interception is not. The Dark Eagle can shift altitude mid-descent, veer sideways, or even zigzag across the sky. Each move buys seconds, but seconds are eternity, at 17 times the speed of sound. By the time an interceptor is fired, the target has already passed the horizon. To shoot it down, one must predict the unpredictable, and prediction against something that moves faster than comprehension becomes prayer. From space-based early warning sensors to naval radar arrays, Every layer of modern defense has a gapper, and the Dark Eagle slides precisely through that gap. It is not invincibility born from arrogance, but from physics itself. In simulation rooms, strategists run endless scenarios. They change launch points, approach angles, velocities, yet the outcome remains the same. No system can guarantee a kill. To the soldiers who must defend against it, the feeling is not defeat, but our Georgia, a recognition that they are witnessing the edge of possibility. The most haunting truth is this: the Dark Eagle was not built to destroy what it touches. It was built to make others hesitate before they move. Because in war, hesitation is victory. And in that brief moment between detection and silence, the sky belongs to no one. For every storm, there must be a sky to contain it. The Dark Eagle may command fear, but even fear gives birth to resolve. Across the Pacific, a web of sensors, radars, and human will stretches silently above the oceanus, a constellation of watchers waiting for the next flash of ignition on the horizon. It begins beyond the clouds, high above Earth. Hypersonic and ballistic tracking sensors orbit in quiet synchrony. They do not sleep. Their eyes are tuned to heat, tiny shifts of infrared that reveal the moment a missile tears free from its cradle. When the Dark Eagle rises, they see it first, a glowing signature of defiance against gravity. These satellites are the sentinels of a new era. They belong not to a single service, but to a network, the Overhead Persistent Architecture, or BOA, a vast digital brain that never blinks. Once a launch is detected, data races across invisible highways to the Missile Defense Agency, where algorithms weave the threads into a single, coherent picture. Seconds later, the image arrives at sea. On the rolling deck of an Aegis destroyer, sailors watch the targeting screen flicker to life. A line of code appears, hypersonic trajectory confirmed. Within moments, the ship's SPY radar recalibrates, guided not by its own eyes, but by the satellites above. Across thousands of miles, the Earth's orbit and the ocean's surface are speaking the same language. The Aegis system does not act alone. It coordinates, shares, and multiplies. Other ships join the conversation, their sensors linked, their firing solutions aligned. Together, they form a floating shield, extending far beyond their natural range, a reach amplified by information itself. Every pulse, every packet of data is a promise. We will see the next threat before it sees us. But in truth, even this architecture trembles before the pace of the future. Hypersonic flight rewrites time itself, compressing reaction windows to seconds. In those seconds, strategy and instinct must merge into one. The sailors at the console know this their fingertips poised over controls that could change the course of a battle. None of them will ever see with their eyes. The technology is vast, the ambition greater still. And yet, at its core, it remains a mirror of humanity. Our desire to understand, to control, to survive. These modern military equipment are not monuments to aggression, but reflections of how far the human mind will go to prevent surprise. The battle for the skies is no longer about bullets or bombs. It is a contest of seconds, an invisible duel between what can be seen and what can be calculated. When a hypersonic weapon like the Dark Eagle or its rivals begins its descent, the reaction window is thinner than breath. For decades, the world has known how to intercept ballistic missiles, predictable arcs, clean mathematics. But the glide body changed everything. It dives, climbs, weaves, and dances beyond prediction, forcing the defenders to invent new instincts. From laboratories hidden in the American desert to command centers at sea, engineers have been shaping an answer, the Glide Phase Interceptor. It is a missile built not to chase, but to anticipate. A weapon whose purpose is to meet a threat in mid-air during the very moment when it glides between space and atmosphere. Its seekers are sharpened for heat that bends, its thrusters for turns that no human could calculate in time. Yet even this marvel of design must be part of something larger. At sea, the Aegis combat system becomes the orchestra conductor. It collects every fragment of data from space, from other ships, from aircraft beyond the horizon. Every byte is a note, every note a heartbeat. When a hostile signature emerges, the orchestra does not hesitate. Commands ripple through encrypted waves, and the launchers awaken. The first salvo rises, Standard Missile 6, the fleet's trusted guardian. Unlike the glide phase interceptor, which seeks the glide body high above, the SM-6 is the last word of defense, the blade at the gate. It hunts in the terminal phase, striking the intruder when there is no sky left to run through. Each missile speaks to its brothers. Aegis-equipped ships share radar pictures, adjust bearings, close gaps. What one vessel cannot see, another can. This is how a fleet becomes more than the sum of its steel, through unity, through trust, through code. Still, no system is perfect. For every advance, the threat evolves faster. Engineers update firmware, adversaries alter flight profiles. It is a chase without finish lines, where certainty lasts only until the next discovery. And so, beneath the surface calm of the Pacific, sailors stand their watches. They are not heroes of headlines, only silhouettes under red lights, waiting for a signal that may never come. The machines they serve are born of fear, but the discipline they carry is born of duty. Because in the age of hypersonic flight, defense is not about victory. It is about endurance. While systems hum in orbit and radar sweep the seas, the true heartbeat of deterrence lies on land, where steel meets soil and strategy becomes geography. Across the Pacific Rim, the United States has begun to place its pieces. The first Dark Eagle battery now stands in Guam, a speck of green suspended in a vast blue emptiness. To many, it is a holiday postcard. To the soldiers stationed there, it is the most forward point of freedom. From this island, the missile can reach across the South China Sea, past the island chains, into the very heart of a continent that watches every move. The trucks rest in camouflage, their launchers hidden beneath tarps, blending with the jungle. Around them, engineers walk in silence, calibrating coordinates, tightening cables. They know that in the language of deterrence, visibility is weakness, but readiness is power. Further west, on the islands of the Philippines, new batteries of SM-6 launchers arrive under tropical rain. The roads twist through villages where children play by the roadside, unaware that a few kilometers away, the future of the region is being wired into existence. From here, arcs of protection extend over the South China Sea, closing the gaps left by ships at sea. Between Guam and the Philippines lies the invisible wall known to strategists as the First Island China, a string of land that begins in Japan, curves through Taiwan and the Philippines, and trails down toward Borneo. Whoever controls this chain controls the gates of the Pacific. It is both shield and sword, prison and pathway. To the east, the second island chain waits on a line that includes Japan's Far Isles, the Marianas, and the waters near the Philippines. These rings are the geometry of strategy, carved not by nature alone, but by decades of human calculation and rivalry. Every deployment, every coordinate, every launch on standby tells a story of preparation. It is not the story of aggression, but of anticipation, the unspoken understanding that peace must sometimes be guarded from the shadows. Night in Guam is humid and heavy. Somewhere among the palm trees, a crew sits inside a mobile command post, the glow of their screens painting their faces blue. They speak little. Their job is not to fight, but to waiter, to hold a silence that, if broken, could echo across the ocean. The Pacific looks calm, but calm is only the surface of control. Beyond the jungles of Guam and the humid plains of the Philippines lies another sentinel. the island of Okinawa. Here, beneath layers of secrecy and political tension, plans move quietly. Reports whisper of a possible Dark Eagle detachment to the Kadena airbase, a site whose runways have seen the rise and fall of empires. To the tourists, Okinawa is paradise. To strategists, it is the hinge of history, the point where East meets West, where time can decide the fate of nations. From this island, the Dark Eagle would need less than 8 minutes to reach Beijing. 8 minutes. The span of a heartbeat, the time between one breath and the next. In those minutes, deterrence transforms into destiny. No admiral or general would admit it aloud, but they all know speed is not merely an advantage, it is control over consequence. At sea, the Zumwalt-class destroyers glide through the mist, their angular hulls slicing the horizon like spectral fortresses. These ships, once questioned for their cost, have found new purposes as carriers of the Navy's conventional prompt strike system kin to the Dark Eagle. 12 launch cells each, hidden within their stealthy frames, waiting for an order that may never come. The ocean around them is vast, but their range makes the world smaller. Beneath the waves, Virginia-class submarines prowl in silence. No one sees them, yet their presence is always felt. They carry what the surface cannot: secrecy, persistence, patience. In an age of satellites and instant detection, they remain the ghosts of deterrence, moving through black water where sound becomes history. Together, Guam, the Philippines, Okinawa, the ships, the submarines they form not a line of defense, but a web of decisions. Each node is a promise. If deterrence fails, response will not. If peace is broken, retaliation will arrive before the echo of the first strike fades. Strategists call this posture distributed lethality. Soldiers call it balance. But beneath every term lies the same truth. It is built on the hope that it will never be used. As dawn breaks over the Pacific, light falls upon radar domes, steel decks, and runways slick with morning rain. The world looks unchanged. Yet somewhere within those calm waters and quiet hangars, the future ticks down, counting down not to launch but to restraint. Because in this new theater, victory is measured not in territory gained, but in wars not fought. It begins at dawn. The sky over the Taiwan Strait glows faintly, the horizon bruised by the first light of day. Fishing boats drift near the shore, their crews unaware that this will be the last peaceful sunrise for a long time. At Ezo 4000, the silence breaks. From deep within the Chinese mainland, a wall of fire rises. Dozens of missiles arc into the sky. DF-17s, DF-26s, and shorter-range weapons each leaving a trail of fury across the clouds. To the untrained eye, it is a meteor shower. To those who understand, it is the opening verse of catastrophe. In command centers across Taiwan, alarms wail. Satellite feeds bloom with light, every sensor screaming at once. Within seconds, the Missile Defense Agency confirms multi-vector strike, simultaneous launch, more than 200 warheads in the first wave. Their trajectories fan out like claws, aimed at air bases, naval ports, and command nodes from Taipei to Taichung. Far away in Guam, the Dark Eagle batteries awaken. In the still air of the morning, soldiers move with deliberate calm. No shouting, no panic, only sequence. Trucks unfold, canisters elevate, data links flicker to life. The coordinates arrive encrypted, relayed from overhead sensors and allies in the region. Meanwhile, on the bridges of Aegis destroyers patrolling the Philippine Sea, officers watch their screens fill with red symbols. They know that within minutes, those symbols will turn into craters somewhere over the horizon. Orders come swiftly. Prepare interceptors. Maintain comms with BOA relay. Prioritize the glide phase tracks. The radar displays become constellations of chaos. Some missiles vanish mid-flight, decoys, interference. Others twist in unpredictable arcs, skipping the upper atmosphere before plunging down again. The DF-17s move like living creatures, gliding and weaving through plasma. For every one detected, another disappears into silence. Over the next few minutes, the Pacific becomes a chessboard of flashes. The first, glide phase, interceptors launch, silver trails crossing paths with shadows. One strike connects on, then two more. Explosions bloom at impossible altitudes, brief and wordless, but the sky remains full. For every flame extinguished, 5 new ones ignite. In Okinawa, power lines hum. The Dark Eagle units at Kadena stand ready, coordinates locked. Their mission is not defense, it is retribution. If authorized, they will fire upon the launch bases in the Chinese interior, striking before the second wave can rise. But authorization means escalation, and escalation means war. For now, the order holds. The air smells of metal and rain. Across the strait, amphibious vessels begin to move, columns of gray cutting through the mist. The invasion has begun. The second wave never comes. Say! Not because China hesitates, but because something else moves first. At 4009, from the ridges of Guam and the hidden pads of Okinawa, the air trembles. The Dark Eagle launches ignites in perfect synchrony. A chorus of thunder answering the storm. The earth shakes, palm trees bow in the heat. The night becomes white. Each missile ascends without warning, without declaration. The first volley climbs east, 4 arrows in formation, their trails weaving through the dawn. Moments later, a second group rises northward. Volleys strike a swarm intended not for precision, but paralysis. Their targets, the DF-17 and DF-26 launch complexes scattered across Hunan and Shandong, the radars that guided them, the eyes that dared to look across the strait. In underground bunkers hundreds of miles away, operators watch their screens turn to static. Communications flicker, then die. Within 8 minutes, the first impacts ripple through command grids like lightning along steel. The Dark Eagle does not explodius. It simply arrives, transferring its fury through motion alone. Shock waves roll beneath the soil. Concrete shatters from energy rather than flame. On the consoles of American destroyers, telemetry flashes green. Target impact confirmed. Yet the satisfaction is brief. The defenders know that behind each destroyed launcher lies another hidden, mobile, waiting. And so the second method begins, the precision strike. The next salvo is smaller, calculated, surgical. Guided by data from the overhead persistent architecture, the missiles pivot mid-flight, adjusting to new coordinates fed from satellite imagery mere seconds old. Each correction is a thought, each burst of thrust a decision. To the watching world, it is choreography. To those who understand, it is deterrence in motion. Somewhere deep within a command room, an analyst whispers what the screens cannot. They are not aiming at people. They are aiming at command. And that is the difference. The Dark Eagle is not vengeance. It is balance restored through precision. Above the Pacific, the ships keep their radars locked, searching for counterfire that never comes. The DF-26 sights are silent. The DF-17 batteries, gone. For the first time in hours, the ocean's horizon is clear. From orbit, the satellites record the aftermath, a pattern of craters glowing faintly in the early light, geometry written in destruction. The message is unmistakable. The skies are no longer one-sided. In that stillness, one truth resonates through every command channel, from Guam to Washington. These modern military equipment are not instruments of conquest, but of calculation. They exist so that fear remains contained, and courage can still mean restraint. The battle pauses now, not in victory, but in comprehension. For now, both sides stare into the silence they have created, realizing that in the age of hypersonic flight, peace is measured in minutes. When the noise fades, all that remains is breathing. In the command post at Guam, the glow of the monitors has dimmed to pale blue. The operators sit in silence, headsets still pressed to their ears, listening to static that no longer carries meaning. The air smells of burnt circuits and coffee. Outside, the jungle hums, as if nothing has happened. Inside, time has stopped. No one cheers. There are no victory shouts, no applause. Only numbers scrolling down a screen. Impact confirmed, signal lost, radar clean. In the language of war, silence is often the loudest sound. A young lieutenant stands by the doorway, staring at the horizon. He joined the army for discipline, for purpose, never for this. He knows that each green dot that disappeared from the radar was a place once filled with people, technicians, sentries, men and women who, only hours ago, were doing exactly what he is doing now, obeying orders, trusting duty. The thought sits heavy in his chest, unspoken. In Okinawa, the Dark Eagle crews begin the ritual of shutdown. Cooling lines detach. Data drives are sealed. A sergeant takes off his gloves, his hands trembling from neither fear nor fatigue, but from something quietude, the understanding that he has just shaped history and that history does not forgive easily. War, in the age of hypersonic flight, no longer feels like battle. It feels like arithmetic. Trajectories replace intentions. Coordinates replace faces. Decisions are made faster than emotion can follow. Yet somewhere beneath the algorithms, beneath the code and the polished alloy, a heartbeat still exists. It belongs to the humans who serve the machinists, who must carry the moral weight that technology cannot. In the Pacific Command Center, an admiral whispers to his aide, "The hardest part is not pulling the trigger. It is living with the silence that follows." Outside, dawn creeps over the ocean. The first sunlight touches the launchers, the decks, the salt-stained steel of the ships that never fired. The water looks the same, the clouds drift as before. Yet everyone who stood watch through that night will remember it forever, and not as victory, but as warning. Because when machines act faster than conscience, only those who remain human can decide when to stop. And that, perhaps, is the last true battlefield, the space between what we can do and what we choose not to. The Pacific sleeps again. The waves roll quietly against the hulls of ships that never had to fire, and the sky once torn by lighter has returned to its familiar calm. Yet beneath that calm lies something irreversible. The world has seen what can no longer be unseen. In the wake of every technological triumph comes a question that cannot be measured in speed or range. What will we do with it? The Dark Eagle is more than a missile. It is a mirror held up to our age, a reflection of what human ingenuity can create when fear and necessity intertwine. It embodies precision, deterrence, and the illusion of control. But no machine, however perfect, can remove the weight of choice. In its gleaming frame, one can trace the evolution of centuries of ambition. Military equipment has always been the handwriting of civilization, a language through which nations speak their will. It tells the story of what we value and what we fear to lose. Handled without wisdom, military equipment becomes the echo of arrogance and the belief that dominance can outpace consequence. It multiplies uncertainty, feeds paranoia, and turns the sky into a stage for power unrestrained. But guided by conscience, military equipment can become the opposite, a guardian of silence, a promise that deterrence can hold violence at bay. The difference lies not in the weapon itself, but in the heart that commands it. Across command rooms and decks, in every hum of radar and flicker of satellite feed, there beats a quiet understanding among those who serve that true mastery is not in striking first, but in knowing when not to strike at all. The Dark Eagle stands now as both marvel and warning, a line humanity has crossed, and one it must never forget. For in the stillness between launch and impact lies the most fragile truth of all, that strength without restraint is merely velocity, and peace without vigilance is only pause. So when the world looks at these silent weapons of light, it should not ask how fast they fly, but how long we can keep them grounded. Because, in the end, power is not the noise it makes, it is the silence it protects. Peace. Freedom. Freedom